Because I'm in between deadlines and waiting for feedback this week, why don't we take this opportunity to have our own little art summer camp? So what do you say, Sumi? Although we just started fall in the Northern Hemisphere, technically I filmed this in the height of summer. It may be Sunday, but now's as good a time as ever to get this party started. I've done this sort of thing in between jobs once before during the winter. At the time, it really refreshed my will to draw, so why not do it on par with this season? But first, let's make a plan. This will help me dive in quickly each day instead of wondering what I should work on. If I don't feel like working on the topic of the day, I can simply pivot to something else so that it still feels fun and I can maintain momentum. Here's what my schedule for this week looks like, subject to change. Today, I'll work on painting and later film composition. Since I'm a small space girly, I tend to keep my painting canvases hidden behind the sofa. Interior design mavens like to say that you can elevate a space by placing it away from your walls, but hey, my 450 square foot apartment doesn't leave a whole lot of room for that. It's been a while since I actually painted on canvas, I think since I worked on those cranes, so my expectations are pretty low. Nevertheless, I'll be working from a prior drawing in my sketchbook. I'll do my best to adapt it to a larger scale, but no promises here. Time for some sploosh. Sploosh! Unpopular opinion, but I actually really like this baby puke green. I had a creative director back at my old job who intensely disliked this color, along with ochre or any form of yellow background really. I did end up switching it to a less yellowy green, but I'll miss you, baby puke green. My intention for this one is to have it line up with the other canvas I drew on next to it, forming a diptych stacked horizontally. We'll see how this one turns out though. Since I've run out of daylight for this painting, let's water our green friends, shall we? On to some film composition studies. But first, sustenance. Now that the machine has been fed, let's crack open the old sketchbook. I used to do a lot of these when I first started out in illustration, since it's a pretty quick, solid way of studying composition. For these, I based my thumbnail sketches off of some stills from the film Drive starring Ryan Gosling. Film Grab is a great site for this little exercise. And if you haven't seen it, Every Frame a Painting does a really deep dive into why the compositions in the movie Drive look so good. In the background, I'm watching the latest season of Black Mirror. I thought their comeback after a few years away was quite strong, and I loved that they varied the tone of each episode. Despite the persistent dread and horror of the previous seasons, which was its own mood, I welcomed the tonal shift. I didn't always see the topical relevance to nightmarish technological advances in this season, but for me, I enjoyed the new episode so much that I didn't mind the lack thereof. The last episode in particular was probably my favorite. Without giving too much away, the two main characters have a delicious dynamic, and it was fun watching how they affected each other's character arcs. Check out my dusty orchid. Her roots got pretty busted up since I'm very unfamiliar with orchid care and didn't realize until after the fact that the nursery bound the root ball in some moss, which led to a lot of root rot. I trimmed the roots back and I'm now water propagating her, but we'll see how she fares with the new adjustments. But since I filmed this a few months earlier, I can report that she's underwent a lot of character development as well as some new growth. There's hope for her yet. Since today is Monday, that means it's time to draw one of my weakest subjects, cars. Brr, 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 brr. A recent personal goal of mine is to become a goth gym rat as a means of having more energy and adopting a no-thoughts mindset. I renounce all brain cells, just give me muscle. Part of my newfound gym identity is keeping up with my protein intake. So it's protein shake time. But hey, I gotta feed the inner gym rat somehow. Alright, time to draw some cars. Okay, so the thing about cars is that I like looking at other artists' renditions of them, especially the really lopsided, wonky ones. But I personally, intensely dislike drawing them. My hope is that maybe if I draw enough of them, though, I'll get more used to it and eventually grow to like it. That's how I finally got myself to draw hands, after all. It helps that I got... My cat just jumped on me. It helps that I gathered all these references of cute cars beforehand, too. And now, a word from our sponsor. Not gonna lie, these cute vans sent me on a quick mental parallel life voyage where I live out my van life dreams. In this car, you'll always be family. On to another probably weaker point of mine, an architecture study. Unfortunately, I got so bored with working on the architecture that I stopped here. What can I say? I think cityscapes might just be my least favorite thing to draw. But maybe if I grit my teeth long enough, I could learn to love them too. One day, just maybe not today. Okay, I can't contain my love of pose exploration here. A few of these are from Pinterest references, but then again, some of them are just made up. With these, I'm trying to focus on line of movement and scale more so than accurate proportions. Correct proportions don't interest me as much as silhouette does, to be honest. I know that's a bit of a convenient thing to say, but I feel as though I've studied enough life drawing to save the anatomical drawings for Leonardo. I'm not sure where this painting is going, but wherever it is, we'll get there together, won't we? In the end, I'm not sure how I feel about this one. It's looking a little too camouflaged right now. Well, in the middle of the night, a few days later, I heard a crash, and it turned out Sumi made an executive creative decision for me. I don't know how to repair canvas, so thank you, Sumi, for relieving some of my indecision. Either way, it's time to get to my friend Isla's apartment for a tete-a-tete. Just in time for some 4th of July fireworks. I agree, recordings of fireworks are distasteful, but let us indulge in the popcorn-esque ASMR. Time to head back to Brooklyn. Let's get into some more life drawing. Currently, I've been reading Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. In the past, I've read and loved Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, but suffice it to say, I have not read a book of hers for a long while. I did read Babel by R.F. Kuang last year, which was a thematic response to Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, and which in and of itself was one of those books I had to pace myself with, or I'd read it too fast. Anyway, back to talking about Piranesi. One thing I feel like it has in common so far with Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell is that her world building feels so tangible that it often takes me a few chapters to really permeate my brain. But at a certain point in the read, it really hooked me. Her characters are often a bit idiosyncratic, which, on top of the already magical aspect of both books, add a perspective that allows me to evaluate my own world just a little bit differently. Almost like drifting on down into a different world. I'm maybe 1/3 through the book so far, but the mystery of it slowly unraveled at first, then gained speed, and is now pulling me in. I'm excited to get further in this labyrinth, but also attempting to pace myself and savor the read a bit longer. Speaking of labyrinths, I've had a hard time of late finding my way to some good movies. Perhaps things are slow right now just because of the season, or maybe the writer's strike has already begun to affect incoming releases. Either way, my favorite of the most recent films have the Barbie movie and Talk to Me. Both very different. What can I say about the Barbie movie that hasn't already been said? I won't talk any spoilers, but it really did feel like we were immersed in Mattel's hot pink universe, and Barbie was both God and the death of God. Greta Gerwig really said, "If I can imagine it, then it will be so." I truly didn't know what would happen next in each scene, but I sure was buckled up in that pink convertible. Talk to Me is a horror film that follows a group of teens who conduct seances via the embalmed hand of a psychic. Terror ensues when a spirit is awakened. I think the last time I've probably felt this much dread in a theater was Hereditary. Solid acting from the crew and lots of gross hijinks that made me laugh with discomfort. Though many scenes elicited the type of noise you might make if you were to scrape your knee on the pavement. Follow along as I work on mundane tasks that I've been putting off for months. This planter was free $99, however, the pinstripes have been throwing me off for a while. It's about time that I painted them. I'm just going to go in with some black and take away a bit of the busyness, not to mention hiding this large chip. This suits my purposes well enough. Now that we're done in here, I figured we'd pay a visit to the Brooklyn Museum. A friend and I were interested in the exhibit It's Problematic, Picasso According to Hannah Gadsby. It re-examines a few of Picasso's works through a feminist, comedic lens, as well as various works by women artists of the 20th century. could totally see these in a cat cafe. Another exhibit we checked out, and that I really loved, was Africa fashion. Hard to constrain an entire continent's fashion into just one exhibit, but the colors and patterns, the textiles, and silhouettes were absolutely gorgeous. A video piece in particular went into some of the history and storytelling of some of these textiles. The exhibit is up until late October if you're in Brooklyn. Originally, I intended to draw at the museum yesterday, but I got too distracted by the exhibits, and then I realized how hungry I was. Today, I have a little bit of client work, but I'll try and fit in a landscape study later. The article I'll be sketching for today is one in Ocado Life magazine, about one woman's experience with cooking in college. After taking some time to read the draft, I'm going to let it simmer for a few minutes before jumping into sketches. My studio mate, Sumi, is also hard at work. These biscuits don't make themselves, after all. Since the article is about the joys and horrors of cooking with fellow college students, I'll mostly be depicting various arrangements of a potluck dinner. Now that that's done, let's move on to our landscape study. For this one, I'll be working from another Pinterest photo. Oh, and if you're a fan of the washi tape, it's by Olivia Fields. One last burst of client work to finish up before I can work on an abstract study. Let's give it the old heave-ho with a good dose of matcha latte. Now I'm just compiling all the sketches to make it easier for the art director on the assignment to digest. I like to number them and provide little descriptions, though I know plenty of illustrators who completely forego the descriptions altogether. Since I won't be working on the final layout with you, I'll just show you how it all turned out. Now that I've emailed my sketches PDF to the client, let's get into an abstract study. I can't pretend that I have a whole lot of insight into abstract pieces, but I know with my own that I like exploring the relationships between shapes. In particular, contrasting them with the interplay of big ones and small ones, straight edges versus soft, organic ones. And then exploring color relationships and balance is interesting to me as well. I thought it might be fun to explore how this neon green pops against the desaturated mauve or lilac, for instance. And the nice thing about Prismacolors is that their pre-existing palette just often ends up working well with one another. I wish my painting had come out a bit more like this, but I have a lot less control when it comes to paint. Anyway, I think I'm happy with it. Originally, today was going to be a day to explore figures and exaggeration, but I do feel like we already did quite a bit of that earlier in the week. It is the weekend after all, but I still have time to sneak in a fun sketchbook doodle. So, would I do a self-imposed art summer camp again? Heck yeah, I would! It was challenging to fit everything in as well as record it. I think because I sometimes underestimate the amount of time that new things take. But I liked getting out of my comfort zone with some of the subjects I chose. My goal wasn't a finished project like it is for clients, and for me that was an indulgence in and of itself. It felt like a mini vacation from my standard routine. Well, that's it for Art Summer Camp. Thanks for watching. I'll let Sumi see you off.